All of the galaxy feared the truth behind the empty council chair. Meant for Earth Commander Zara of the Velian Empire, stared at the empty chair that had haunted the Galactic Council for 300 years. The chair, made from rare blue crystal, sat between the seats of the most powerful species in known space, yet no one had ever seen who it belonged to. The council chamber buzzed with nervous energy as representatives from 12 different worlds gathered for the emergency session. Zara adjusted her silver uniform and glanced at her fellow commanders. The chair, marked with strange symbols that hurt to look at, directly remained empty as always. High Counselor Lyra from the Andorian Federation called the meeting to order, her voice carried across the vast chamber as she spoke of recent events that had shaken the galaxy to its core. 3 entire fleets had vanished without trace near the edge of known space. The only clue was a single transmission that mentioned something, called human Zara. Had heard whispers about humans before ancient legends spoke of a species so dangerous that even mentioning their name brought bad luck. The stories said they came from a small blue world in an unremarkable system somewhere beyond the outer rim. Most dismissed these tales as myths told to frighten young ones. General Kira of the Reptilian Dominion stood to address the council. Her scales gleamed under the chamber lights as she shared intelligence reports from her scouts. They had found wreckage from the missing fleets, but something was wrong. The ships had been torn apart by weapons that should not exist. The metal showed signs of damage from projectile weapons that fired solid chunks of matter instead of energy beams. The gathered aliens murmured in confusion. Projectile weapons had been abandoned millions of years ago, when energy weapons proved far superior. Who would still use such primitive technology? And how could it possibly destroy modern warships, Commander? Vera of the Crystal Collective presented her findings next. Her translucent form shimmered as she displayed holographic evidence of the battle sites. The attacking ships used no shields or defensive systems that could be detected. They relied on thick armor plating and moved in formation patterns that made no tactical sense. Yet somehow they had defeated forces 10 times their size. As the reports continued, Zara felt a growing chill in her heart. The empty chair seemed to loom larger with each revelation. Several counselors kept glancing at it as if expecting someone to suddenly appear. The ancient warnings about the chair began to make terrible sense. Counselor Lyra finally addressed what everyone was thinking. She activated the chamber's main display and showed the galaxy map. The missing fleets had all vanished while investigating the same region of space. A small spiral arm that had been marked as forbidden for as long as anyone could remember. The area where sensors failed to work properly and ships that ventured too close were never seen again. High Admiral Nova of the insectoid swarm clicked her mandibles nervously as she revealed classified information. Her species had tried to map that region once, sending dozens of scout ships over several centuries. None had returned. But occasionally they detected strange signals coming from deep within the forbidden zone. Signals that seemed to contain mathematical patterns and what might be attempts at communication. Truth began to dawn on the assembled representatives. The empty chair was not waiting for some unknown species to claim it. The chair already belonged to someone. The humans were not myths or legends. They were real, and they had been watching the galaxy from their hidden corner of space. General Kira's voice trembled as she shared the final piece of evidence. Her intelligence network had intercepted a transmission fragment from one of the lost fleets. The message was brief but clear. The attackers had identified themselves before opening fire. They called themselves the United Earth Defense Force, and they were responding to what they considered acts of war against their territory. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. For 3 centuries, the Galactic Council had ruled over known space, believing themselves to be the supreme powers in the universe. They had carved up star systems, divided resources, and waged wars without considering that someone might be watching from the shadows. Someone who had been strong enough to remain hidden, while the galaxy's greatest empires rose and fell around them. Zara studied the empty chair with new understanding. The symbols carved into its crystal surface were not decorative. They were warnings written in a language no one had bothered to learn. The chair was not a gift or invitation. It was a declaration. The humans had claimed their place at the council table, whether the other species acknowledged it or not. Commander Lyra's voice shook as she read from an ancient document discovered in the council archives. The text spoke of first contact protocols established before any current member species had achieved spaceflight. It mentioned a race called humans who had been granted permanent membership in the council, but had chosen to observe rather than participate. The document was signed by civilizations that had vanished long before the current galactic powers emerged. The realization hit like a plasma bolt to the chest. The humans were not newcomers to the galactic stage. They were among its founders. The empty chair represented the oldest continuous membership in council history. While empires rose and fell around them, humans had quietly watched and waited. Admiral Nova presented sensor data that painted an even more disturbing picture. The Forbidden Zone was not empty as everyone had assumed. It contained energy signatures consistent with massive industrial complexes, artificial gravity wells that suggested planetary engineering on an impossible scale, and defensive installations that dwarfed anything the current galaxy could produce. The humans had not been hiding in fear. They had been building, preparing, growing stronger, while the rest of the galaxy remained ignorant of their existence. The three fleets had not stumbled upon a primitive species defending their territory. They had encountered the edge of what might be the galaxy's true superpower. As the emergency session continued, representatives began to understand why their ancestors had marked human space as forbidden. The warnings had not been meant to protect the humans from galactic interference. They had been meant to protect the galaxy from the humans. General Kira voiced what everyone was thinking. The missing fleets were not casualties of war. They were messages. The humans were announcing that their period of observation was ending. The empty chair would not remain empty much longer. The galaxy had spent centuries believing itself to be the center of civilization, advanced beyond measure and ready to face any threat. The truth was far more terrifying. They were children playing at war while something ancient and powerful watched from the darkness. The empty chair was about to be filled, and when it was, everything would change. Commander Zara looked around the chamber at the faces of beings who had considered themselves masters of the universe just hours before. Now they sat in stunned silence, contemplating the possibility that they had never been in control at all. The humans were coming, and the galaxy would finally learn why that chair had remained empty for so long. The council session ended without resolution. How do you prepare for contact with a species that has been watching you for centuries? A species powerful enough to remain hidden while building an empire in the shadows. The empty chair waited as it had for 300 years, but now everyone knew that soon it would be empty. No, longer. The truth behind the empty council chair was simple and terrifying. Earth had never needed an invitation to join the galactic community. They had been founding members all along, waiting for the right moment to step out of the shadows and claim their rightful place at the head of the table.